Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. Tonight my guest is a first-time candidate for Kent Town Board. Her name is Nina Gerosa, and we're going to find out why she's running and why you should vote for her. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you,
glad
Armanda.
to be here.
Such a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it is my pleasure because I don't know if everyone knows you as well as they should. So I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the voting public and let us all know why we should vote for you. So let me just say that you were elected once before for the Kent School Board, right?
Yes, I was.
But other than that, you haven't really had much experience running for office or being elected. So in this time you were on school board, you have been contributing greatly, though, to your community in a volunteer way. So can you explain some of the ways you've been active in Kent and in your community?
Well, it's always been my pleasure to serve my community. I think it's a really important part of life to give back to where you live and to meet your neighbors. And I've certainly met a lot of new people knocking on doors as a candidate lately. I find that so many of us really have a lot in common and that we have common values and issues that come up locally in Kent. I have served as, in addition to the school board trustee, I've served as a member of the Kent Zoning Board of Appeals. I've also served as a volunteer EMT in the Lake Carmel Fire Department. Most recently, I took training called Hope Not Handcuffs to serve as one of the people that helps to connect addicts to rehabilitation when they're asking for help.
Right. Now, a minute ago, a photograph of you at the firehouse just flashed on screen. So can we bring that back up? So this is part of your volunteering. What did you do with the fire department?
This is actually part of my son's volunteering. He's a volunteer firefighter at the Kent Firehouse over on Route 301. And I'm standing next to him during the community day, and next to me is my running mate, Ann Campbell, who I think will be appearing on your show at some point.
Yes, she will be, and she's also running for Kent Town Board. Okay.
Yes.
Which brings me to, well, thank you for all that community service, by the way. That's quite impressive. But you're running as a Democrat, and so is Ann, I think. So tell me about that.
We're both running as Democrats, but both of our focuses are nonpartisan. We're also running under the common sense line. And we think our philosophy is that we might be divided nationally, but we are united locally, meaning that we have a lot of the same interests, a lot of the same problems, and that a person who's going to serve on the town board should be focusing on our specific issues and uniting the community so that we can work together to keep Kent on the right track and keep the lovely community that it is.
When Kent voters go to vote, are they going to see something called the Common Sense Party? I mean, I haven't heard of this before. And are you going to be on two lines?
Yes. Both Ann and I and Maureen Fleming will be on the Common Sense line, on the Democratic Party line as well.
Okay. Can you explain the Common Sense? This is totally new to me. So I'm just hearing about it today. So if that's true, probably so are our viewers. Can you go into a little more depth about that?
The Common Sense Party was formed basically to stop the partisan division, to stop defining people as either Republican or Democratic. Because as I say, we've had a lot of common viewpoints, no matter what your political affiliation may be. And political affiliation is not what you want to be focusing on when you're dealing with the issues and the town problems. As a person who is nonpartisan, who served both on the school board and on the zoning board of appeals, the issues that come up before us are not the issues that so divide us as a nation. We need things that are going to help our community, that are going to help maintain low taxes while still raising revenue for our services. We need responsible development. We need to address community issues such as what our children are doing, what things are available for our teens, what we're doing to help veterans, all things that are within our community. Senior citizen work. Those are not partisan issues. Those are issues that help the quality of life, that bring us more together as a community, and that we can work together to help. And that's why the Common Sense Party was formed. Basically, it's common sense to work together for local issues and get things done.
So are there going to be any candidates running on the Republican and Common Sense line?
There are no candidates who are running on the Republican and the Common Sense line.
Okay. I'll just leave that there then. So you've said, and I think that you're talking about it right now, that it's important to discuss local issues without injecting politics into the conversation. And what you just said makes me think that you think even here in Putnam County, in Kent, that politics is dividing our community along ideological lines rather than perhaps practical, commonsensical lines. And, I'm going to guess that a lot of people are going to go to the voting booth on the 5th of November and just pick a party and just color in all the dots for that party. And that may not be the smartest way for a voter to behave, right?
Yes, I would say it's best to educate yourself about the issues that are coming up in front of the town board and pick the person that you feel would best represent what the values of the town where you live should be. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that you can do that along partisan lines. I know for myself, I've always crossed party lines. If I feel somebody's a good candidate and I know who they are and what their views are, then I will vote for that person. I don't really care which party is backing them. Mm-hmm. And I would hope that that is true of many people. Unfortunately, I think the lives that we live now, it's difficult to educate yourself about different viewpoints of candidates. And I appreciate that a lot of people are very busy just working and living their lives and trying to raise their children just to stay in the community. It takes a lot of effort, and you don't have a lot of extra time to go out and learn things about people who will be basically representing you.
Right.
But to the extent that that's possible, it's a great idea, because then you vote for people, you don't just vote for a party.
Right. And along those lines, people will be able to come out and hear the Kent candidates at a candidates forum that's coming up on Sunday, October 20th. We've got some information on a slide there at the Sedgwood Club, and that's at 810 Gulf Ridge Road in Carmel. And it looks like it's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And will all the Kent candidates be at that forum?
It's my understanding that they will, and I think it's the only forum that you're going to be able to see all of the candidates. We did have some invitations from the local Chamber of Commerce, and I know the Kent Town Board candidates were all there too. Mm-hmm. And this forum is not going to be a debate. It's going to be the candidates speaking for 3 to 5 minutes and then questions from the audience. So it would be a good time for people who have questions and want to know how people stand on the issues to come, and you'll be able to contrast and compare different people's viewpoints there.
Mm-hmm. So at this time, I also want to remind people you have a website, right? And
yes.
And we have a lower third for you to be able to see that in a second. But we'll bring that up as we have more conversation here. So I'm assuming that if you think that the current town board in Kent is doing everything right for their residents, that you would say, this is great, and I don't have to worry about that. But instead, you have chosen to run to be one of those elected town board members. So tell me a little about your thinking about that. Where do you see that Kent residents aren't getting everything they should be getting from their elected officials?
At this point, I prefer to be looking forward rather than looking backward to what the board may or may not have done. I think looking forward, we have some very important questions to answer as to how we want the town of Kent to develop. We have a unique environmental town. It's got a lot of watershed. Mm-hmm. Out of 23,000 acres, I believe 6,000 acres are owned by the New York City watershed. And therefore, we have to be very careful of our water. We have to be very careful of our environmental resources. And at the same time, we're pricing people out from being able to live here. Mm-hmm. Sometimes lifetime residents, people's children are moving out of the community because they can't afford to stay here. So whoever is going to be on the planning process for the future of Kent and the development of Kent has to have a picture and has to want to be able to look down 20 years from now and to say, what is good for Kent now? What is that going to look like 20 years from now? As a person who's been here since 1997, and as somebody who's served on the different boards in this town, and who's familiar with the zoning code and the Kent Comprehensive Plan, it's very important that we start thinking about new solutions to these problems. And one of the things we need to look at is affordable housing, is something called cluster type of housing, for example, where you are able to preserve a lot of the trees and the surrounding area by putting homes, instead of one home after another, you cluster the homes together, you have community space, and the rest of the space is preserved for people to enjoy, to use, wildlife to stay there. We have to always consider that we have well water. We have to make sure that whatever we approve does not contaminate our wells. There's no plan B if our wells fail. The same with our lakes, are amazing, beautiful resources. It's really one of the reasons that I moved up to Kent when I had young children. And one of my great pleasures was being able to take my children swimming in Lake Carmel and go to the fireworks there. And it's a wonderful quality of life that we enjoy up here.
Right.
And I would really like to be part of the process of sustaining our future, moving forward in Kent, trying things that perhaps other communities have tried successfully, and looking for things that are new and innovative as solutions. I think all of us understand there has to be some commercial development in Kent. But I think it's crucially important that that commercial development is done as a long-term plan in mind, in using the Kent Comprehensive Plan as a guide, and that we try to think of things that are going to be helpful to people as well as not harm our environment.
Tell me more about the comprehensive plan, because I don't know how well known that is either in Kent. What specifically about it, maybe the top three action items that the comprehensive plan is promoting that you support?
It gives guidance as to how to develop for the town and how to promote revenue producing for the town. The main thrust of the comprehensive plan is that you have a system of development that's not helter-skelter, so that there's a plan involved. There's one thing after, you don't just say, we're going to have this store here or this piece of property over here and have it randomly done. Because we have a lot of issues with the way our town was built up, having anything from these small plots that used to be summer homes to now 3-acre plots in different areas that are zoned for that. What we're trying to do with the Kent Comprehensive Plan, basically, is to have a systematic, reviewable plan of development so that you would have, for example, a Kent Town Center, so that people would know if they bought property the next day, there wouldn't be something next to it that you wouldn't expect to be next to it.
Right.
So it promotes uniformity, it promotes an overall plan of development that you can therefore tailor to our town's specific needs. And it promotes a sense of there should be a center of the town, and then there should be residential area of the town, and you don't have the inconveniences of the residential part and the commercial part conflicting with each other. So I think it's very important to use that, and it really examines the unique character of our town as watershed town and the limitations on that, and things that we really need to consider before we invite certain things in or reject certain things.
So when I drive through Kent, I'm on Route 52, and I get to a certain point, maybe around where Lake Carmel is, and I think, oh, this is downtown Kent. And if there's another downtown Kent, I don't know where that is. So what you're saying doesn't seem to exist right now. What's the time frame for this comprehensive plan?
I don't think that there is a finite time frame for it. There's goals for it, but you have to have somebody who's willing to develop in order to start developing property that you want developed in a certain way. We don't control who comes up to us, but I think perhaps with some planning we might be able to attract certain developers who are more aware of our plan and are interested in doing that type of work. Something I would definitely explore as to how to find people that would be interested in doing development that would be very positive things for our town, so that the town board and the planning board can work with them and come out together with a plan that all the residents are comfortable with and feel that would be a good thing for our town.
So you said there's no real timeline for it yet, and that it would be helpful to be proactive about, soliciting ideas from, maybe all developers that do care about environment, that do care about the quality of life of the residents, and of course preserving the water systems and the well water and all the beautiful lakes that it's just so beautiful over in Kent. It's really, really lovely. You're lucky to live there, and so is everyone else who lives in Kent. But what about the county? I mean, doesn't the county have an economic development wing or some kind of I guess it's a nonprofit, but it's very involved with the county legislature and the county executive's office. And then I think there's the IDA, the Industrial Development Association or agency. How would you involve them in improving the life of Kent and its residents?
I think it's always important when you're serving to be looking at any sources of income and guidance that you can get from different agencies. I would certainly be educating myself as to what those sources of revenue were, both county, state, and federal. We're looking into something recently called the Climate Smart Plan, and when you interview Anne, she's the one who's really immersed herself in that type of research, and she's very knowledgeable about it.
Anne Campbell.
Anne Campbell, correct. And she would be able to answer your questions about that. But I'm an attorney. I do research a lot for a living. I would want to educate myself, first of all, by going to town board seminars that help educate people who have been elected, and as well as looking into what revenue is available for us. I know that there are things that are available, and I think it's part of my duties as a town board member to be looking for those sources of revenue and of education, and to keep myself abreast with what are the newest innovations where other communities are dealing with these issues.
So you're leading me to another question, thank you, and that is that Patterns from Progress, a think tank up in Poughkeepsie that looks at the region, the Hudson Valley, and just released a report. They looked very closely at Putnam County and the future of Putnam County. And that report, I believe, was released on October 4th, and anyone who wants to read it, it's a very sobering report. It is on their website, and it's free to download. But what they said about Putnam County was that we would soon be facing an economic crisis, stating that we have a stagnant population, and in some areas we're losing population. We have low-paying jobs within the area, and that we have very quickly rising costs. And of course, by that they mean taxes and the other, quality of life issues. For example, I think that they, I don't have the report in front of me, but they said something like if you're renting in Putnam County, 50% of your income is going towards rental costs, which is incredible. I mean, nobody can really sustain that. So tell me about your response. Do you think that they're right about what they're predicting, and how can we change our future?
I think the article you're talking about is called Out of Alignment.
Yes.
Is that okay? That I think it's very sobering. I don't think it's unexpected. I don't think that it's that much different from a lot of other counties that they could look at in New York State, certainly, and probably around the country. We've had for a long time big box stores with jobs that are part-time, that don't offer health insurance. And yes, you can say that there's jobs that come in with that, but if you have to work 2 other jobs and pay for your own health insurance, it's not a great job opportunity. That's why I think also that sometimes our national statistics as to unemployment don't necessarily reflect in reality whether people are struggling or whether they're better off. I think that it's certainly something to be considered in Kent. I think it's each individual community in the county has to consider this and start forming plans for it accordingly. because it will be the communities individually that come together in the county that can change this type of picture. Certainly, if we're going to be losing children and most of our population is going to be of retirement age, that's going to change the character of the town. And we have to decide, do we want to bring people in here who are raising families? Do we want more of to do things that draw that type of person in? Do we want to be developing economic opportunities in the town of Kent or serve more as a bedroom community? Right now, a lot of people in Kent, including myself, commute to work. And I had found, in fact, I was in private practice for a number of years in Kent, and 2008, the economics got so bad that I ended up taking a job in the city, which I've been very happy with. But it's a very different life if you're spending 12 hours away from home, as opposed to being able to go to work in 15 minutes and be around for your children and your family.
I was a commuter to Manhattan for many years, and I've lived here for 20 years. I didn't pay any attention to what was going on in my own community. I was on the train 4 hours a day, 2 hours in, 2 hours out, or commuting, whether I was the Metro North or the subway. But when you do that, or when I did it, I just kind of said, oh, I'm sure everything's taken care of. Everybody is doing a good job back in Carmel, and, I don't have to worry about it. And then I retired, and I started paying attention, and it was kind of surprising to me that not everything is being taken care of, or wasn't, and that we really do need to spend more time really examining where we live, and not just reading the New York Times about what's happening around the world. That's my little speech about commuting. But I think that a lot of the local politicians ignore the fact that every morning 40,000 people of the 100,000 people who live in Putnam County get up and they go somewhere else, and that's 5 days a week, sometimes 6. That's where their life is.
Yes.
And they're not paying as much attention as they should. And what did Greta Thunberg say? Our house is burning, and we may not know it. So actually, that report was pretty dire. And
yes.
I would, out of alignment, I would suggest people pay attention to it. And
absolutely.
We're running down in time, but I did want to mention that New York State passed early voting. And so if you're not going to be here on November 5th, you can vote in New York between October 26th and November 3rd. And you do that by just going to the Board of Elections. It's at 25 Old Route 6 in Carmel, next to the bowling alley, not too far from this studio. And you can cast your vote 9 to 5, I think, and they may even have some evening hours as well. So if you didn't have time, or you don't have time to get an absentee ballot, you're not going to be here on the 5th, go vote. Go cast your ballot early and get your sticker, and that's it, and we'll all be better for it, I think. There's no excuse to say, I can't vote on the 5th, right? Because if you can vote anytime between the 26th of October and the 3rd of November, you can vote in this election. It's one of those elections that people expect people not to vote in.
Yes.
Again, because it's all local races, and all those 40,000 people are on the Metro North, and they're not paying attention to what's going on here. So anyways, I did want to talk a little bit about specifically why you, Nina. Why are you the person who needs to be on that Kent Town Board?
Armanda, I'm a good listener. I've been spending the last 11 years as a civil rights attorney for people who are intellectually disabled and have psychiatric issues. I've done a lot of work in guardianship, and I try to listen. You have to really hear somebody and give them respect, and make sure that you have acknowledged who they are and what their issue is. And it's a way of educating yourself. Mm-hmm. I find that if I'm closed-minded, everybody has things that they would rather believe are true. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make them true. And it's difficult when you have somebody who's challenging your firmly held beliefs, but it's also the way for you to grow. And I think it's important that everybody listens to each other, and that we learn from each other, and that we're kind to each other and give each other respect. And I feel like I've been developing those skills for a long time in my life. And I would like to put them to use for the community. And it would be my hope that I am able to represent people, not just the people who elect me, but everybody in Kent, and that they know that if they appear in front of me as a town board member, that I will listen to them and that I will consider their viewpoint, no matter how different it might be from my viewpoint.
Nana, I really have to congratulate you for the bravery to step up and all the work that it takes to be a candidate at the local level, at any level. It means that you really care about your community. That's job number one. And obviously you are a person who really wants your community to thrive and be terrific. So thank you so much for coming, Nina.
Thank you. It's such an honor to serve the community, and thank you so much for the privilege of being on your show, Armanda.
It's my pleasure, and I also want to say to the viewers that watch, thank you. We couldn't do this without you, and of course for the crew, the volunteer crew that comes. And what's my last words? Well, of course, it's get out and vote. November 3rd is voting day, but here in New York you can vote from October 26th through November 3rd. Thanks.